developing with Typo 3. And for around 3 of those years, I have been focusing mainly on Drupal. I'm currently working together with my awesome colleagues at Reload in Frederiksberg. I'm 31 years old. So before I present to you all the cool features of panels, I would like to tell you why I'm so psyched about it. See, as I mentioned before, the first content management system I ever used was Typo 3. And first, a little disclaimer. I haven't done any Typo 3 sites since 2010. And I know that a new version was just released. But all these facts that I'm going to get into are based on later versions. I was told that Christian Juhl is going to maybe present a session tomorrow about Typo 3 VS. So, if you, for instance, have a piece of news in a Drupal site, you would most likely make it a note type. However, if you have to create something similar in Typo 3, you would need a module that could show one piece of news, and then this module could be inserted on a page. And that's not cool. So here I think that Drupal is the superior one. But section pages in a Drupal site, that's a pain. I mean, with vanilla Drupal, you would most likely do some views and other pieces of content and put them into blocks. But with Typo 3, building a section page is done pretty easily. I will demo that in a second. So here, Typo 3 is better, I think. So the things I really like about Typo 3 is the flexibility you have when you're creating each page on your site. A page in Typo 3 is just an empty page in a hierarchical structure to which you can add multiple pieces of content. Unlike Drupal, where a node often only has a body field. You can, for instance, add a piece of text with a heading. This is just dummy content. I know that for some of you it might be difficult to read. It's just dummy content to show that there's a block of content. And then you can insert something called a flexible content element that essentially divides the main column into 2 columns. These flexible content elements can then be nested inside each other, essentially giving us 3 columns of each, 33% of the site width. We can insert a list of news in the left, some text in the middle, another piece of text to the right, and perhaps having an image spanning the 2 rightmost columns. So, Drupal and Typo 3 are much different in their structure. And this way of building a page in Typo 3 might seem more like a section page in Drupal than a node. But building articles, pieces of news, and blog posts, etc. with Drupal's node system is a bliss. But when it comes to creating something like a section page that isn't really a node, Drupal goes short. A good way of solving that could be by using panels. Panels gives you a lot of flexibility in which you can create pages in Drupal, much like in Typo 3. Though panels itself is not that easy to use. I've taken here the first line of documentation from the panels project page. It says, the panels module allows the site administrator to create customized layout for multiple users. The key here is site administrator. A normal Drupal editor might have difficulties understanding panels out of the box, which I will now demonstrate. This is the front page of a project we recently did together with Slovusapani. It implements all the things I'm going to cover about panels, and therefore it will be used throughout my presentation. This front page, as you see it, is built with panels. If we log in on the site and navigate to admin structure pages, that, we will see a list of panel pages within the site. We choose the front page and click the Content tab. And now you will see all the elements that are in panels represented in the front end. If we zoom out and take a look at the front end and back end of the front page simultaneously, we can see all the regions represented there. Each of these regions can contain multiple elements such as views and nodes and custom content and much more. The layout of these pages can be altered. I'll get back to that later. You can move content around by simply dragging the element's title bar, saving the panel page, and updating the front end. Notice here how the green bar in the banners changes place, like that. You can also create new content by simply clicking the settings wheel, choosing add content, and choosing a custom container, and inserting some content and saving the pane. And move it into place, and when you update and save, there will be like a big block of text saved with a headline in the left column. With traditional blocks, you have visibility rules to choose where to show, on which pages and such, to show the elements. In panels, these visibility rules are called selection rules instead. There is also visibility rules, but I will not go into that. Here, however, you have many more options. You can, for instance, use a node's properties as a context on whether or not to show the pane or not. So, by choosing panels, we can completely avoid these nasty blocks. Avoid blocks, you say. But what about my main menu, my footer, and other things in my site template? Well, the answer to that question is panels everywhere module. When using panels everywhere, you have the same options as we saw with panels before. Only, I think of panels of a tool handling the content variable in your template. So what you see here, the front page, is essentially the content on the page. This content goes into a pane in panels everywhere, together with menus, logo, tabs, and such. You can then choose a layout that represents and replaces your site template. The previously mentioned selection rules are really handy here. We have, for example, a region called main menu with 4 menus in it, and all these menus are different states of the menu, but they're handled with these selection rules. So using panels as section pages and site templates is pretty nice. But these section pages, as you saw before, are not that easy to manage. If you don't need all the features panels has to offer, you might find something like panel nodes handle. Instead of dealing with panel pages, you can use this special node type that allows you to create pages in an easier way. Though panels nodes don't provide all the features from panel pages, you still have the option to choose the layout and insert the content. You can create panel nodes by navigating to Node Add Panel. First, you choose a layout for the page. In this example, we just choose a layout with 2 columns and a header. Next, some settings including the title. When you save the node does not provide this traditional body field like normal nodes does, but instead introduces 2 new tabs. You can see them, one called Panel Layout and one called Panel Content. If you click Panel Content, the body is now replaced. What the body should be of the node is now replaced with the Panels tool. And you can easily create new content by simply clicking the settings icon like before. Again, we just choose custom content and add some dummy content, dummy text. After filling out the form, we save the pane, like that. And we now have something in the right column, but we cannot see what it is though. After making a similar item in the left column, we save the node and go to Node View, where we can see the content is divided into 2 columns. So the layout we chose in the beginning, it said 2 columns and a header. We didn't put any content in the header, but it's there if you want to use it. These columns are 66% wide and 33% wide. So panels comes with many of these predefined layouts. You can use them or you can build your own very easily. I will not go into how you build your layout, but it's fairly easy. This is not the layout that was intended for sclerosis section pages, though. So instead, we should choose a layout that says 33% times 3, giving us 3 columns. When we continue in this wizard, we have an option now to move the content around. For instance, now we introduced a new column. Maybe what was in the left column before should be in the middle column instead. So then we can move all the elements from one column to another, like this. In this case, we won't. We simply just save the node with the new layout. And now we have 3 columns instead, where the middle one is empty. We go back to panel content and just create a new element here with this custom content block. Save the document. So now we have 3 columns all filled out. We save and go back to view the node. So panel nodes makes panels easier, a bit easier and more intuitive to work with. Again, if you don't need all the fancy things that panels have to offer, for example, access control, contexts, and panel variants, panel nodes can make it much easier for the editor to handle these section pages. But it's still a bit frustrating to look at. When we go to tab panel content and the edit mode for the page, then the only thing you see is like the title in those gray bars. So you have no feeling when you're moving things around and creating new content. You have no feeling about how it's going to look like. It unfortunately gets a lot easier if you introduce a module like Panels in Place Editor. Later in my presentation, it's called Panels IPE, and I guess that's the term that's used about it. So, when editing the node, there is an option to choose Panels IPE as a renderer of the node. When done, and we save the node, we instead get like 2 new buttons at the bottom of the page. They say customize this page and change layout. And they essentially replaces what you had before, the panel layout and the panel content. When clicking customize this page, the panel tool is now rendered inline instead. And we can easily move elements around on the page and see that they change appearance based on the column they're in. So, if we now navigate back to the front page and remove the big text block we did before, this headline text, like that, we can see that we have 2 panes now next to each other, and they're views. Like there's a view of news to the left in a white column, and a list of activities to the right in a narrow column. So if we take these 2 views and swap them around, we have made it such so that they fit the column they're in better. So here, notice how news had an image on the top and the title for every piece of news, and there was the teaser as well. Now it's more condensed because there is not much space for it. This is not features of panels, but just shows you what you can do with Panels in Place Editor when you see the changes immediately after moving them around. When we save the page, the Panels IPE that handles that surrounds all the elements and the regions are removed, and we can now see a cleaner version of, the version of the page that the viewer will see as well. So what I've done now is I've taken panels and introduced panel nodes to make it much easier and convenient for the editor to create these section pages. And we have now introduced a way of even easier for the editor to manage the content and move it around and such. But if we go back to the previous creating test page we did before, it looks kind of dull. All I'm doing here is that I'm putting custom content into some regions, and you can't use that for anything. So what can you really insert in these panes? As you saw on the front page before, you can insert views, you can insert a node in teaser mode, for example, and menus and such. But one thing that really stands out, I think, is something called viewable panel panes. With viewable panel panes, you get panes that are entities, and that's cool. If we start by removing all the content that we did before to clean up the page, because this is not how a section page should look like on schools. This is not the live site, though. So you know. Now we have this clean page, and here we can insert these viewable panel panes. For slow screening, we did a few. The first viewable panel pane I'm going to show is a page top box. Like before, it has a title and a body field. This top box or viewable panel pane also provides the option to choose a picture. So when we insert a picture and save it, we can see a pane in a second that's themed and layouted as part of the slow screening design website. Yeah. So that's it. Another viewable panel pane we created for slow screening is a color box. A color box consists, like you saw before, of a title, an image, and a body field. But one thing it also does is that it provides the feature of the user to change to specify the color of the box. That's why it's called the color box. So in this case, I guess the user chose a blue box, and this blue box is then used like all over the site to specify certain areas of the website with links in line with the text. So we can create like other boxes like this. And a cool thing to notice here is that you can flag these elements for reuse if you specify a category and a name. I'll get back to that later. But this element is now flagged for reuse, this cupcake on purple background. You can easily add like views. The views you saw from the front page before, these are predefined. I'm not going to go into that right now, but you can easily insert views, and essentially you will have this section page that goes on the website. If we go back to the front page, I want to show you one cool thing, like with viewable panel panes. We have a carousel here with 3 elements in it. Normally, when you have a carousel like this, an approach could be to create a view with few elements in it, and then have this view presented in an unordered list and theming it, putting in like maybe a jQuery carousel so that views controls all the things. Another approach could be to build what's called a node queue, but we all know that it's not intuitive for the user to control the carousel in this way. So what we did is that we took the viewable panel panes and introduced this to the carousel. So when I choose customize this page, this carousel is broken into viewable panel panes. You can easily create a new one here with the plus tab, and we have this viewable panel pane called carousel item. We choose that, and like the other panel panes, there's a title, a description, a link, and we can choose an image, like this. Yeah, and now we have these 4 elements in the carousel. This carousel only supports 3 items, however, so we're going to remove one. And when we save this page again, we now have a carousel with 3 items there. The one we just created is the last one. We can easily edit this page again, move them around, and save, and now our element is the first one instead. So viewable panel panes, that's a really cool feature of panels, at least I think. The last thing I'm going to present to you as part of the panels package, that is panelizer. The cool thing, all the cool things that you have in panels, they they do not only apply to pages and panel nodes, they can also apply to traditional nodes on your panel website, on your Drupal website. If we look at the node, a simple node in panels, both the front and the back end, the right column is empty. So we're quickly going to put in a test block with some custom content in the right column and see how it's reflected on the front end. So that's like the traditional things we have already seen in other examples. The problem here is that when we navigate to another node that implements this panel layout and refresh the site, then this node has the same content. And that's not good because you have no possibility to add or alter each node's appearance in panels. I mean, they will all have the same content, and if you move the title to the bottom instead, then it will reflect on all the panels. However, Panelizer can solve this by binding the panel layout to the node as soon as it's different from the master layout. With Panelizer enabled and IPE as well, we can easily customize the node and insert content in the right column. I've cleaned up the mess we did before. So now we have this page with a testing Panelizer pane to the right. If we navigate to the other tab again, this is another node implementing the same layout. If we refresh this page, this testing Panelizer pane is not there. And this happens again because as soon as we alter the layout on the other page, it detaches the layout from the master and links it to the specified node only. Once again, on this node, there is no content in the right column. We can add some. Actually, do you remember us flagging a feasible panel pane for reuse earlier? We can choose the category banners and find, I believe it was called some cupcake, like that. And now we have the feasible panel pane that we created before. So we can reuse content wherever we want. But this is also cool because reusable panes, they are just a link to the original one. So if I change it here, it will reflect in all the places where the reusable entity is inserted. That's very cool if you, for instance, have a right column with 3 to 4 banners and you want to alter one banner because the one making the graphics made a mistake, then you can easily replace it everywhere at once. Yeah. If we switch back to the first node we created, the color box, again, is not here. There are two different revisions. They are two different revisions of the master. But if we remove some of the elements on the page, the bottom bar and the summary, we end up with a node that is much simpler in this presentation. And let's say, for instance, that this is an editor who did this by mistake, and he doesn't know what was actually there before, and he does not know how to get it back. You can easily revert back to the master layout by clicking the tab Panelizer, the third tab, and clicking the button Reset to Default. What it does is that it removes this link revision, and now it is using the master layout instead. There's of course some drawbacks with this. Take for example the situation where you just want to change a little thing. For example, add one button to the bar. Then this node is obviously not using the master layout. But later on, you want to make a change to the master layout, and in your mind, you want this change to reflect on this page. It won't because it's detached. So that's one thing to take into consideration when you're using a Panelizer. I've been talking about panels and other contribute modules. To summarize, the panels package contains the most essential modules. I mean, the module is called panels, but it includes some other modules as well. There is, of course, the panels module, which provides all the basic functionality of you being able to create panel pages and having these layouts and things. The other thing that is in panel package is panel nodes, and panel nodes makes it possible for you to make panels on a node instead of having to go into the administration interface and create a new page and things like that. That is not the traditional way of working with Drupal, so an editor might have difficulties with that. Panels in place editor is also part of the panel package. And just to clarify, what I mean with the panel package is that if you download the panels module, you get all these 3 modules with that. So the next one is not a part of the panels package, but a standalone module, and that's viewable panel panes, which allows you to have these panes as entities. Yeah. Panels Everywhere provides the panels functionality to what you would consider normally the site template. And Panelizer, as you just saw before, gives you the possibility to have different layouts on different nodes. So there is a distribution of Drupal called Panoply. And the distribution Panoply is essentially all these modules of panels combined into one and patched up so that all of the things that didn't work works, and the user experience seems somewhat more polished with Panoply. This is a clean installation of Panoply. When we insert new content, there is a lot of predefined viewable panel panes. One of them is video. When we choose the video and start typing in the title, you notice that the preview to the right is updated automatically. You can also change the video, and here you can just type in a YouTube video, Vimeo, or any OEmbed video. You will see the preview to the right, and when you save, the video is automatically fitted to the column that it's in. This is just one of the many cool features of Panoply. It does a lot of other things out of the box. However, we didn't use Panoply for building sclerose grading, since Panoply wasn't mature enough when we first started out. And we had some concerns about the extensibility of the distribution, though because sclerose grading was quite a complex site. The author of Panoply, Mancini, does an awesome job working and maintaining Panoply. And he's very open for new ideas and very fast to commit them. In fact, both my colleague Martin and I, we have already accepted patches in the newest release of it. So, but Panels is more an installation profile that is intended to be used as it is. More than Panels is more an installation profile that is intended to be used as it is than it is an installation profile you can base your site on and then freely extend. Though now we are actually adopting Panoply and using it on a new project we just started because we feel that it has matured a lot over the last year. So if you don't need to extend Panoply, if you can use what is already there, besides the template, then Panoply is a great place to start if you want to get into this. So one question I get a lot is what's better? There's cool things about Type 3 and there's cool things about Drupal. In my opinion, the two tools are good for different jobs. But I believe that the panel package empowers Drupal with many cool features. To summarize my presentation, I listed the main modules you have to use to get started. I mean, what I presented in my presentation. So, any questions? Yes? Panoply. Penelope. I did it wrong many times. Yeah.
Does it have any funny front-end-based solutions like responsive images?
I don't think it provides anything with responsive images. No, it comes with regarding responsive. It comes with a responsive version of Bati template that you can use. Yeah.
Is it React-based or Spark-based?
I'm not sure. I haven't used it myself. Yes?
Specific questions to the fieldable panel paints,
Yes.
to the jQuery carousel.
Yeah.
Where exactly did you say this is a jQuery carousel?
I didn't.
You didn't?
No.
Exactly. So just wondering.
So we just like with jQuery, doing a lot of massaging of the elements. When we so you have a carousel, but when you click customize this page, you trigger some JavaScript that disassembles the carousel and present them as viewable panel pages instead. What they are, but visually as well.
Yeah. So how did you sort of say that? Okay, these three viewable panel paints are.
So what you can do with all the regions and panels is that you can specify classes and IDs and such, and you can use something that I didn't get into at all. That might be interesting. Is these styles that you can build your own and attach to the regions. This will break completely if you put anything else in this region than these carousel items. So, yes?
If you take panels by itself, how bloated is the output of code?
Well,
or do you have any influence on?
Yeah, well, there are different ways where you can, so it's not panels itself, as far as I see, it's the panel layouts. The panel layouts that are shipped with panels, they tend to solve, like with all our other things that Drupal tend to solve all the issues we had with previous browsers. And even worse, panels is shipped with something called layout, flexible layout building, I guess, where you can specify the regions, you can add new ones and such. And if you use that, then you're doomed to hell with your markup. But you can also very easily create your own layouts, and then you have full control over that. And then the other problem are these styles that you can give every pane. You can remove that as well. So essentially, you can get back to raw markup.
Okay.
Yes.
Say you have a customer that has control of the content, but you don't want them to have control of most of the layout, except, for example, the carousel. Could you disable their access to moving around?
I'm not sure, but I don't think so, no. You can lock panes, yeah. I'm not sure how locking panes works with panel sim-based editor, though. Yes?
In your presentation, you one time you moved a view of articles and a view of I don't know, calendar activities or something like that.
And news and activities. Yeah,
yeah exactly. And when you moved the news section, you removed the images. Was that just some CSS, or did you do that?
That was just, I mean, in the DOM, the element is actually moved instantly. I mean, when we move an element and releases, the element is moved in the DOM so that it automatically just inherits what CSS it has to use there.
Okay.
So it has nothing to do with panels itself.
Exactly.
Yes?
With the panel pane entities,
Flexible panel pane.
we're showing how they can be reused. And so there must be some sort of usage tracking happening. This is also something that happens with file entities to track usage. So is this something that should be a standard feature of entities that we can track where they're used?
I'm not sure about that. I'm not sure about that. And all of this with panels, what I presented so far, that I know that Spark initiative is going on, things like that, and they have a lot of redefined ways of thinking, but this is what you can do now, and Spark is like a year ago, a year or something. Yes?
The beautiful panel paint,
Yeah?
the reuse of those is possible to detach them from the master as it is with the...
So to analyze them.
Yeah, to create a different, slightly different version for the front page or something like that.
The feasible panel pane itself is not a panel. It's just like I don't know, something you put in the panels.
Yeah, but my question is more like, if you reuse the feasible panel panes, then they're the same all over the place. You make a copy of them easily so that they break from the master.
I'm not sure. I don't think that you can copy them. No.
You can make them under.
Yeah. You can make them. Thank you. Any other questions? No. Okay.